Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the All in Crypto podcast. I am your host, All in Crypto, and today I am delighted to be joined by Ed Wakidi, the CEO of RedSwan, a company that is fundamentally transforming the financial world. Welcome on board, Ed. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here on All in Crypto.
Yeah, it is a real pleasure. And it's a bit of a different podcast for us because we're so crypto focused and we like to sort of venture out into the traditional world every now and then. But this is a brilliant opportunity for me to talk to yourself, who is kind of merging the traditional financial world with this blockchain world that is still really to be explored and developed. So with all my guests, I really like to start with them. So if I could perhaps get you to give us a little bit of an introduction into yourself and how you got to where you are today, that would be brilliant.
I am a serial entrepreneur. I loved being in business. I really didn't do well working for anybody. I started as a CPA with Arthur Young and Company after graduating from Michigan University. And then from there, since I didn't like it, even though I had my CPA, I moved to California, got involved in the stock market just as an employee on a runner, but eventually got into my own business. I bought into a business and grew it from one location into a franchise of 7 locations. Then I sold off from that and moved into the technology industry, but we had a venture-backed company that was really in the automotive industry, and it was all about logistics on the parts. So we built that company, 200 some employees, venture-backed with about $95 million. I was a co-founder. We sold that company to a Fortune 500 company. And then I was going to retire, but too young to retire, moved to Texas, be close to my mother, got back into kind of business brokerage business and eventually commercial real estate. And through commercial real estate, I found my, comfort zone. I was actually, be the executive director of Cushman & Wakefield for capital markets. I held that position for about 17 years and then retired in 2018 because I was really ready for something different. And when I was recommended one of my co-founders of a previous company to look into blockchain technology. So I go to a blockchain conference, and there were all crypto guys there, and they raised their hand. How many people made over $1 million with crypto? And like 300 hands went up. I was looking around the room saying, wow, even the guy next to me. And I was impressed, but not really by the cryptocurrency itself. I actually went to the expo part of the conference and saw people using blockchain, and seeing how blockchain technology worked really was what was stirring my interest. And then I think there was like 2 months, I actually found my co-founders at that same conference. 2 months later, the federal government, the SEC, blocked or banned the ICOs in the United States, but they also enhanced and made legal STO, security token offerings. And that really heightened my interest in going into blockchain technology. I actually tendered my resignation to Cushman & Wakefield after that happened and started RedSwan with my co-founders. And we're just excited about the future of finance. And we kept growing the business at that point. People didn't know what we were doing or what we were talking about, but luckily I had a few customers that believed in me and let me tokenize their assets. And then here we are today, where tokenization seems to be the way of the future. So that's kind of how I got into the business. And now we're just looking to grow this business as far as we can. I believe that we want to follow the same kind of shoes as BlackRock, providing a lot of investment opportunities to individuals around the world and making it very easy for them to get in and out of investments for real estate. So by tokenizing real estate, we think this is the way of the future, and also a way to give people access to wealth.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Tokenization has so many benefits, and I'm sure we're going to come on to some of them. It would almost be impossible for us to cover all of them. But yeah, what an amazing backstory. And you sound like the perfect person for bridging these two industries, having such a wealth in the one that you were previously in and still in, and really understanding distributed ledgers and what they can bring to the table. So you're currently the CEO of RedSwan. Could we get an overview of RedSwan for anybody who's unfamiliar?
Absolutely. RedSwan is a marketplace of digitized commercial real estate. We take properties that are institutional type quality assets that are usually out of the reach for the average investor. We now tokenize the equity or debt side of the capital stack for those properties, which now allows for us to fractionalize the ownership into shares. So we take $100 million property, let's say it has $50 million worth of debt. We tokenize, that means there's $100 million or $50 million worth of a clean net equity on the property. We tokenize that 50 million of net equity and now 100%, and now we can distribute, 80%, 90% of that equity to outside investors, allowing them to come in, become LP investors in that entity. So it could be a single property, it could be a portfolio of properties. We can tokenize a fund that also addresses real estate, but everything we do on RedSwan is 100% commercial and institutional investment quality real estate.
Yeah, fantastic. And what was it about tokenization? What really clicked for you? I mean, you mentioned a couple of things there. Of course, sort of you're almost creating entirely new markets out of existing ones, or perhaps revolutionizing them. What about tokenization was it for you that really made a lot of sense, and you saw really upgrading and revolutionizing this industry?
Well, with 17 years of capital market experience, helping investors build, buy, sell commercial real estate, my Rolodex was thin, maybe 25 to 100 companies I'm calling on. These are institutions that can write checks for $1 million to $20 million. And so what was good about that was I can sell things pretty quickly. I make a phone call to 10 or 15 institutions, they bid on a project, and it's gone. But what was bad about it is that you didn't have a lot of outreach to smaller investors. So smaller investors, even friends and family members that might want to get involved in these high quality investments, never had access to it. And I felt bad about that because, you feel like you want to be able to do good for everyone. And I felt that that was a need that needed to be taken care of. And when I saw the blockchain technology, that was the first thing that came to my mind, is that we now could fractionalize and make it more accessible. And consequently, in 2012, the Jobs Act came out, and fractionalization, also came out. So you had a lot of companies now fractionalizing real estate, but it was still had the same old-fashioned problems, illiquidity, right? Still high, even though it's fractionalized, the dollar entry was still sometimes $100,000 to get into a fractionalized asset. And then we felt that by tokenizing it, you can actually bring that price point down from $100,000 to $500. And now the liquidity factor becomes 24/7. If they decide they want to sell, they have that option to get out, and there's a market that you can showcase your sale to that can give you liquidity. So I think that was just revolutionary, and that really excited me because I knew that at the end of the day, that's what investors want. I mean, there are so many international investors who want to buy into U.S. dollar-denominated properties, but by the time they fly out here and take a look at it, the property is sold. By the time they want to get access to it, the price point is too high. So that's trillions of dollars worth of investors just left out of the process. Not to mention here in the United States, all those investors who don't have enough capital to buy in are also left out. And not just because they don't have the capital, but if you had $500,000 to your name as all your entire net worth, and to invest in a real estate property costs you $500,000, you're going to be probably a little leery about putting all your money into one deal, right? Because that's very high risk. But now, if we can offer the opportunity for them to take that same $500,000 and only spend $100,000 and buy into 20 deals that are similar in different markets, you've really diversified your risk, and you're making a much better investment decision. So it was a no-brainer for me to get into the business and start evangelizing tokenization to the world, because I knew that at the end of the day, it was going to be the winner.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I think it really aligns with kind of the whole ethos of this industry, which is to essentially make things a lot more inclusive, a lot more 24/7, and to open up entire markets and access to entire markets from places that just simply couldn't reach it. And you also, like I say, you create entirely new markets, these tokenized representations of a share of a deal. they can be traded, I believe, on a secondary market. And is that something that RedSwan facilitate?
Yes, it does. You can trade. First of all, you're right. Opening the market so people have access to see assets in the United States, assets in Africa, assets in China, assets in Vietnam, Middle East, and be able to buy those assets right off their cell phone within minutes is revolutionary. But you're absolutely right. The secondary market is something that we are working on. We're building an ATS so that all of our clients will have direct access to sell. And we think we're the best solution for that because right now we have the most eyeballs of investors looking for digital assets and real estate. So having the secondary exchange for them to look at properties or shares that want to be sold goes hand in hand. Right now, we use a third-party ATS. So if our customers, when they buy the shares they want to sell, we push them over to the broker-dealer who has ATS, and they can sell. But by end of first quarter next year, we should have our ATS running. We then have to get approval from the SEC and FINRA, but I think that will work. And then we can go live with our ATS as well.
Yeah, all very exciting stuff planned for 2024. I've had a little bit of a look at the roadmap and certain pieces of it. And as somebody that primarily just invests in the crypto space, you know, we're more of a serial investor than just crypto. And we think the beautiful thing here is that this is creating an opportunity for people that are into crypto to actually get exposure to sort of more the traditional financial world and to diversify through that in a very native and quite frankly better way. Because like you had mentioned, you know, there are huge barriers, certainly when you're dealing with commercial real estate, to even getting somebody to pick the phone up at the other end, let alone actually go ahead and invest in this and have it all laid out in front of you. It truly is unbelievably transformational. And I think that people often look at blockchain and distributed ledgers as a bit of a gimmick, you know, a bit of a buzzword. But actually, if you understand, and me and you have had a brief conversation off air about the transformative nature of what this is doing, it's nothing short of exciting, you know, and very honored to have yourself on talking to us about all this. What kind of success? So what has RedSwan been doing recently? Is there anything you want to kind of highlight recently that RedSwan has been facilitating, and what kind of interest have you seen in the tokenization of real estate?
We're doing a lot. We are, you know, two things. We have a marketplace, so we're focusing on two things. One is bringing content, high quality real estate assets to put on the blockchain, tokenize, so that you and everyone else has more options of what you can buy around the world. Also, distribution and making sure we have registered many investors coming on board who want to buy these shares. So we're increasing the number of investors on a daily basis, but we're also working on relationships with institutional distribution channels. Like Coinbase, for example, has 125 million users in Coinbase, and you know, they're not, I'm not going to say they're tired of cryptocurrency, but I think they want to balance themselves out. You know, crypto holders learned a big lesson over the past couple of years that you can't be all in on one asset type. If something goes wrong, like Bitcoin goes down and the rest of the cryptocurrency goes down with it, your life savings could drop, you know, 50, 60% overnight. And I think people realize that's a big mistake, even though there was a lot of ups and downs and positive capital gains from cryptocurrency. There's still a lot of, you know, loss from the drop in value. So by diversifying some of that crypto into other digital assets that are giving you a return, I think is a smart move just to balance out your portfolio. So we're really doing a lot of work to build on the distribution channels on an institutional level, because we know that they like to buy large quantities of transactions. So having billions and billions of dollars of real estate on our blockchain, our marketplace, feeds into the institutions. Having a variety of quality projects that are low entry points, like $500, feeds into the retail sector. So we're doing a lot on both sides of the equation. Just recently, it was last week, we just announced through a press release that we took a $4 billion assignment from the Middle East. This is a client that's based in Dubai that has real estate throughout the Middle East. $4 billion, 36 assets, beautiful properties. And that's just a starting point. That market has trillions of dollars worth of real estate, and it's growing faster than most countries around the world. So we are excited about those types of assignments, working in other areas around the world, like Seoul, Korea is an interesting place, Singapore, Africa. All these countries are emerging and are desperately looking for ways to get exposure to capital, right? Foreign direct investment capital. And, you know, RedSwan is actually putting them on the map in terms of, hey, we recognize you as a very good, responsible developer, and the projects you're working on also, we think, have a lot of good benefit and feasibility for the market area. And we put it on our platform so that now U.S. investors can see apartment developments, office developments in Ghana, in Nigeria, in South Africa, and they have the same kind of tenants, Microsoft, you know, Arthur Young and Company, or Ernst and Young and Company. So there's you can compare. Here's a Class A asset in Johannesburg, office building with Microsoft and Amazon as tenants, and then here's the same similar project in New York City, but the yield difference is different, right? So you're going to ask yourself, well, I like what I'm seeing here in New York City. The cap rate is 6%, but I'm seeing something very similar in Johannesburg, and they're paying me 9%. Well, you know, maybe you might want to buy a little bit of both so you're more comfortable, but these are the things that we normally haven't had a chance to see or compare in the past. And we're bringing that, you know, to the forefront on the blockchain.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing, you know. And if you're talking about, there's parts in Africa, there's parts in Asia that probably didn't have access to capital markets until tokenization came about, really. Or they may have, but in a very sort of narrow channel. Now it really just, I mean, you're going to get entirely new liquidity and real estate on the table in a really sort of transparent and accessible manner that just simply didn't exist before the introduction of tokenization. And that really, really excites me.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll touch on that because that's so important to dial out for everybody to understand. I used to do a lot of business in China before blockchain was at Cushman Wakefield. One of the ways I was successful by going to China with a lot of opportunities before they hit the market. So I can come back to these owners with offers before they even hit the market. But in China, for them to participate in these U.S. investments that are like, you know, need $20 million, each person, the maximum they could actually put out in terms of export outbound capital from China was $50,000. So you would have one person going around to all these families and collecting $50,000, putting them into an escrow account, and then shipping it up to the United States through a wire, and then buying an asset with all these players. Well, that's the old-fashioned way of doing it. Now, all those families and participants could just go on their cell phone and make an order up to that $50,000 mark, and boom, they're now shareholders. They don't need an intermediary, you know, charging them an extra fee. So that's the benefit of using blockchain.
Yeah, and you mentioned something else about yield, which I want to come to, because in crypto, we're very used to yield. You know, we've got these staking protocols that will offer you a yield for locking up your tokens or whatever it may be, DeFi, all of this kind of stuff. We touched on this idea of, as a crypto investor, it's great to have a channel in a native way to be able to diversify your investments. Coming back to yield, how does that work? So do all of these shares, all of these tokenized parts of the deal, will they all individually generate yield based on the overall? What does that process? I'm probably confusing myself and you in trying to explain this, but what does the yield process look like for investors that invest in these tokenized shares?
So just like any traditional investment that's using 506C exemption or 506B exemption in the United States, they have to put together a proposal, PPM, which is just a memorandum of the investment and what it does, and it will tell you, spell out the yield that they expect to pay out. So let's say the yield annually as a preferred, which means that the investors get their money before the sponsor makes any profit. So let's say that preferred yield is 8%. That means that as this apartment building is generating cash flow, the first dollar goes to the investors who are coming in, the LP investors, and they have to get their 8% first, before any profit can be given to the sponsor. So the yield may start off at 8%, 8.5%, 9%, but then they're going to, and their plan is to continue to increase the revenue of the property by raising rents and adding value. So that should help the property actually increase in value as well. So the typical investment will get an annual yield or quarterly yield that may be 8 to 9 to 10%, but also as the property improves in value, the value overall is increasing. So if it was started at $1 a share and it was earning $1 million, and then by year 5 is now earning $1,700,000, then that value of the property has probably gone up from the $1 million to maybe by 10 or 15%. Well, that means that your share also increased if you want to sell it by that proportional amount. So you get a double benefit as an investor of parking your money so it goes up in value overall, and cash flow coming in quarterly or annually from that investment. So that's typically how most of the investments we underwrite and put on our platform will perform. But then you would also have funds that people put together where they might put 10 or 15 different properties into one bucket, and they might be in different asset classes, apartments, hotels, industrial. And then overall, they're putting out a yield that may be 10%. So there's giving you cash flow 10%. The increase in value, the capital gain may not be as strong because there's such a variety of properties, but that cash flow you're getting is pretty consistent and is also spread out. So your risk is spread out. So I would say that, people should look at both types of investments: a fund that has a very, diverse allocation of investments that you can buy into, so you're very secure, as well as investments that you understand and like that you can buy directly into that asset, which may give you more of a direct performance. So both types of projects you can find on RedSwan.
Wow. Like I say, my brain is just exploding with not only how great this is for investors, how great this is for the commercial real estate industry as a whole. Think of the trillions and trillions of dollars that is going to be unlocked and gain access to this. And actually, it's going to become somebody for myself. We found ourselves in a very interesting situation in 2022 with a name like All in Crypto, where we were all out of crypto. We said, we don't really want to touch this. If we had had something, although real estate went slightly down or did go down in 2022 as well, if we'd had something a little bit more stable, we perhaps would have, that generates a yield, we would have perhaps gone down that path. So the possibilities, I think, are truly endless, and the benefits are already, just from how long we've been speaking, very apparent, very clear. And like I say, it's nothing short of amazing. I'd really, yeah.
Let me touch on one more thing, because you brought in DeFi and collateralized lending through staking, and using a cryptocurrency staking, you still have the risk of that currency going up and down in value. So even though you might be staking it to get a yield return, if the underlying asset is dropping in value, that's going to impact your return on that investment. Real estate has always been the best collateralized investment on earth, right? So now you're holding shares of digitized real estate that's unencumbered by any debt. Whatever you invest in one of these properties on our platform is unencumbered by any debt. So now you can actually stake your real estate ownership and collect yield on top of the yield you're generating from the asset itself. There's so many different ways that people can start benefiting in terms of making a return on their investment. This could be a profession for some people, just getting into real estate investments, because they have so much variety of how they can generate income. This never existed before. And so I think that that's going to be, a way for the young investors to start getting involved in real estate, either as a hobby, but through that hobby, start building wealth over time, so that whatever they're doing as a permanent job, they will now have options to leave that job, continue that job, but their net worth is now increased to the point where they're self-sufficient.
Yeah, and again, that's what I mean. My head just explodes with all these ideas. I'm really glad you brought that up, because in DeFi, there's lots of opportunities. You can lend, you can borrow, you can essentially, there's no reason why you can't do that with these tokenized real estate pieces that essentially you can, it just, the world of possibilities really is opening up. And I'm excited to see all the other markets that are formed off the market you're creating, which is already transforming things. You're going to get markets forming off markets off markets off. It's going to be very exciting. all on board with what you're doing, and really excited for the future. I think the future is everything gets tokenized, and real estate is not going to miss out on that. And I've always been told that real estate has been a lot of people's savior throughout the years. It's always been, I've always been brought up to think that real estate is something you should get into as early as possible. I think there's a little bit of nuance that comes with that, but generally, I think that's very much the
Right.
case.
You're absolutely right. I mean, for me personally, the real estate was my savior, right? I invested in real estate early on. My very first business in automotive, the best decision I made was to buy the business and the real estate that went together. Because at the end of the day, I was able to sell off the business, keep the real estate, rent to the new buyer, and that was more income coming in, and then sell off the real estate at a much higher value. And so, yeah, I think real estate over time becomes your major asset base, because you've paid off your debt with your tenants. They're helping you pay off your debt, and now you have an asset this without debt and generating cash flow. And if the more disciplined you are, the more assets you'll have under your net worth, and the more value you're going to have down the road. So yeah, I think real estate has been a saving grace for many people to create wealth around the world.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And talking about, let's maybe talk a little bit about younger people, millennials, perhaps, because we constantly hear, certainly here in the UK, that property is simply unaffordable. It's, there's a lot of, for younger people anyway, I think issues when it comes to actually entering property from a house owner point of view, and also from an investment point of view, which of course tokenization is the latter, really changing. Why do you think millennials should be interested in the housing market as a whole, not a housing market, the sort of real estate market as a whole, and everything that you guys are doing? Because I think they should be paying probably more attention than anybody, as they're the ones that are going to inherit it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that in the United States, at least in there, I'm sure other countries would be similar. There's $146 trillion of assets, investment assets, that are being transferred from the baby boomers to millennials and the Xers. That's a lot of capital that's moving over. So whether it's you who are benefiting as a beneficiary for this inheritance, or you have friends that are inheriting this kind of capital, you can help your friends to invest their funds and become a fund manager. But I think there's an opportunity for everyone in this demographic to be able to take advantage of the change in the market today, because they can move a lot faster and they can start doing more things. The millennials are able to do multitasks at the same time. They can take a job, whatever it might be, but then have their cell phone, and they're doing their hobby on their cell phone. And I think when they start looking at real estate shares and dollar cost averaging, just buying a few shares a week or a month with every paycheck, over the period of time, within years, maybe in 2 to 3 years, they're going to start seeing an accumulation of wealth taking place. And they're also educating themselves on how to extract higher yield from these investments. I see them becoming extremely successful using tokenization and using their intellect with Web3 technology.
Yeah, I always tell my brothers who actually are in the traditional financial world, when they were younger, I always told them to put a little bit aside every month and invest that into things like perhaps stocks, even things like gold and silver, but to have really real estate become accessible. I mean, I think that that's such a winning formula for a younger person. You've got this transfer of wealth that is, we're going to inherit essentially. This is a way for you to get a piece of that. And I think that without tokenization, that would have been made very, very hard. And I want to move on to sort of RedSwan, how people can get involved and things like that. But I have got to ask, what is the distributed ledger technology that you guys are using? Is there a specific blockchain that you're leveraging? I don't know if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we're agnostic with the blockchains. We're actually developing relationships with blockchains so that we can mint tokens in their ecosystem. For right now, we use Polygon, so that we mint in Polygon. They can buy a Polygon, which is a Ethereum based token. But we're also really happy that we're working with Hedera Hashgraph, which has their own DLT, and with that, their ecosystem now can use the HBAR stablecoin to buy HBAR tokens, real estate security tokens. That's huge for them because they have this currency of HBAR, and they're looking for how to use it to create value other than just waiting for it to increase in value. Now they can cash that into their stable coin, buy some real estate, buy some gold, buy some diamonds, and start building that whole asset base. So I believe that it's very important to work with different layer ones. And so, there's Coinbase that's coming out with Base. There's layer one, we'll probably tokenize there. There's Hedera that we're tokenizing on as well. And there are going to be a couple other larger L1s that we're going to start working with, where we're actually building the token on their platform, making it available to all their users. To me, that's a great distribution channel.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't think there's going to be one chain to rule them all. I think it's going to be a really interoperable universe. And actually, I think Polygon, you've got the likes of Siemens that tokenize on Polygon. If you look at Hedera, you've got the likes of Aberdeen, which I think is the largest fund manager in the UK, that are tokenizing their money markets through Hedera. And then, of course, Base. You touched on Coinbase earlier. Coinbase is a very interesting company. I think it's an exciting one, and I know from what I've been seeing over the past couple of months, they keep bringing up RWA, real world assets. And that is exactly what you guys are doing. So yeah, no, very, very exciting. And we're personally big fans of all of those blockchains and what they're doing. Very fit for purpose. And I think it's a great approach to not just be on one chain. You're limiting yourself massively there. And I also know that Hedera launched their stablecoin studio. It's so much interesting things going on. And it's really nice to see how you're leveraging all that.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things going on, especially with the layer ones. I mean, they're really trying to create excitement in this ecosystem of digital currencies and digital technology. And I think real world assets, real estate is just one aspect of the alternatives. There are others. There's gold. There's all these commodities. But I think that real estate is something that is actually giving a yield in return. So it's one thing to buy something and hold it for it to improve in value down the road. That could be a slow process, versus you're buying something that has asset value, which is also improving over time, but it's giving you a return on a quarterly basis. That is important.
Yeah, I think that's a real distinction to make. In regards to RedSwan, if people want to get involved with RedSwan, how do they go about doing that?
Well, two ways. First of all, register our platform so you have access to these opportunities that come up. You can express interest in all the opportunities, so therefore we know what you want to invest in, and when it's time to close those opportunities out, we'll call you and invite you to be a participant. But we're also raising capital right now, which I think is a rare situation that we can raise additional seed round. We want to keep growing our company, growing our base, so that we can open up RedSwans in other parts of the world. Right now, let's see GCC in Africa, but we like Southeast Asia, we like Canada, we like so many different markets. And by investing in RedSwan, you're helping us to do that. But I also think you're getting in early for the next, like I said, BlackRock type scenario in digital real estate technology. And if that's exciting to you, then it's not, you put your money where you want to put your time and effort, right? If you really want to learn how to be successful in the Web3 technology, especially tokenization, then buy into a company that's doing well at it and learn with the company and grow with the company. You're getting education and you're gaining wealth, right? So those are two things you should do if you want to get involved in this environment. And RedSwan, I think, be one way for you to learn the process, get access to the real estate, have a great multiple for your investment that you make in RedSwan. But I just think is that direct communication and knowledge that you're getting in the short term that's going to really benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, I love that. And if you think about like the gold rush, which is somewhat comparable with the tokenization of everything, perhaps. Often a lot of people went looking for gold and they never found it. But the people that almost guaranteed, there is really no guarantee in making money, but made a lot of money were the people that were selling the picks and shovels, and the infrastructure around this transformation is valuable. That's my kind of view on it. And if someone was to invest in RedSwan, could we maybe talk a little bit about what does that process look like? Are you guys, is it some sort of an IPO at the moment? What's going on with actually investing in RedSwan?
Right now we have what we call Reg CF, which is a crowdfunding round that's been governed by the SEC. We've gone through all the necessary requirements for filing this, so they can go to our website or redswan.io/invest, or even just redswan.io, and they'll see the invest button. We have our pitch deck there. We have our regulated, what they call Form C there, so they can review all about our company, see what kind of cash position we have, see what our projected growth is. But I can tell you right now, I mean, we're selling the shares at $20 a share. We have a valuation of $175 million. But, if you look at just the assets we put under management and the contracted revenue for selling those assets out, that's about $200 million of contracted revenue today. So buying in, I mean, we're going to sell out. I mean, the future is there where the tokens never die. They never go away unless you decide to burn the tokens. We haven't had any clients that we've tokenized wanting to burn their tokens. They want to keep them alive because they want to keep the opportunity available for bringing in capital. So if you think about a company that's, has about $10 billion of assets that have been tokenized and growing, that's giving us more and more revenue, contracted revenue, from 200 million to $1 billion eventually of contracted revenue. We're going to collect on that revenue, but look at the investors. What they're getting is buying in at a 1x of what our revenue, contracted revenue is. Typically, people would be buying it at a 10x level in that same kind of scenario. So I think it's a great time for people to participate in RedSwan. But I really think more so than just the capital gain you're getting by buying our stock, the education is the most valuable, I think, because access to deal flow, access to know how to manipulate the shares, how to do DeFi, how to do all these things to gain, that's knowledge. And you can't go to school and get that kind of knowledge today. You have to go with people who are doing it the right way. And I think by joining us, you automatically get that.
Yeah, I love that. It's certainly something I'll be checking out because I'm all about that. I'm all about learning from people who are doing what they're doing, and the data that's going to come with all of this. One very interesting thing about blockchain is essentially they're big data sources in many regards. They're ledgers, and you can see. You can aggregate and you can kind of learn a lot from that. And I think that it's very exciting. I think where you're positioned is so perfect. How long has RedSwan been going for? When was this all really? When did it already start?
It started in 2018, April of 2018. After that, a few months after that blockchain conference I went to, we formalized RedSwan. We really didn't start getting into transactional activity until 2020, but we had to get our license first, and while we have a license, we were able to start doing more transactions. But yeah, it's like we wanted to make sure we created a foundation that was stable. Many people try to skirt the SEC. I'm not selling a security. I'm selling a utility token. We knew we were selling securities. We knew we had to get licensed, and we knew we had to bring people on board who have licenses with FINRA and the SEC. So getting things done right, building the right technology and the right base for a marketplace was all important foundational work for RedSwan. That's all behind us now, and really it's about scaling this company and making sure we have enough resources to continue to scale as the opportunities keep coming our way. And that's not going to stop. I mean, we're getting calls from all over the world. My biggest problem is I only can do one thing at a time right now. So I can't go to Switzerland and open an office. I can't run over to China to open an office right now, but eventually we'll have the manpower and the capital to do so.
Yeah, it's always the case. And I'm sure as a serial entrepreneur, you've encountered problems with scaling. You can't be everywhere at once, and you'll know exactly how to do that. So your background, positioned absolutely perfectly. Ed, are there any closing remarks you want to make before we close the interview out?
No, I'm just really happy that All In Crypto's invited me to talk. I think that the cryptocurrency hodler audience is really the target market that we really want to work with initially. Why? Because you guys already understand the business. You already have a digital wallet. You're moving digital assets right now. So we don't have to train you on what we're doing. We just have to give you opportunities you can easily jump into. So I really appreciate being here because I think that audience that you cater to is looking for some diversification and education for real world assets. And we're here for them. So thank you very much. And if they want to reach us, go to redswan.io or DM me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to respond. But this is a treat to be able to talk to a market that we're really catering to.
Yeah, it's honestly been my pleasure. And we're going to leave a link to everything in the description, everything about RedSwan. We'll also leave some links to their recent publications and, of course, recent news involving RedSwan and what they're doing. Ed, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been delightful.
Thank you. Appreciate it.